Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about aspec symbols, and specifically what your favourite aspec symbols are. In this series, Voices of Ace, I take your responses to a question or a topic and basically talk about it. The reason I'm doing this is to get a broad perspective from people in the aspec communities. So without further ado, let's get started. So what I've done basically is ask you what your favourite ace symbol was and if there's any particular reason why. I looked at the responses and then grouped them into which aspec symbols they mentioned enjoying. Taking all that data, I can then make a pie chart of your favourite aspec symbols. So in total we have 10 aspec symbols, 3 of which were only mentioned once. And I just want to talk a bit about what those are, what percentage of people liked them, therefore which are the most popular, and kind of talk about their relevancy to the aspec communities. Now obviously the sample size for this was not very big. However, that being said, it does show some clear trends towards different aspec symbols being more popular. So the most popular symbol in the ace community, according to this very small poll, was ace playing cards. In the ace community, it is quite common to use the 4 aces, the ace of hearts, the ace of spades, the ace of clubs, and the ace of diamonds to represent asexuality. The reason for this is obvious. Ace, as in the playing card, and ace, as in the shortening for asexual. 2 of these playing cards have specific consistent meanings. The ace of hearts is used for alloromantic aces, and the ace of spades is used for aromantic aces. But the other 2 tend to switch up, but for the other 2, the meaning tends to switch around a bit. In some examples, the diamond represents the grey asexuality, the spectrum between asexuality and allosexuality, and the club represents whether you're questioning, you don't know where you are on the spectrum. But I have seen other interpretations for this as well, so I don't think those 2 are as nailed down as the ace of hearts and the ace of spades. The second most popular symbol on the list was dragons. Now I don't blame people for liking dragons as a symbol of being aspec. Dragons are very cool. Dragons are mythological creatures which in the Western world are typically seen as quadrupedal winged large lizards, I guess is the best way to say it, that can breathe fire. But there are many different types of dragons around the world. Eastern dragons tend to be more snake-like, but dragons aside, why are they a symbol of aspecness? I think the reason why dragons are a symbol for asexuality is simply because they are mythical creatures. Asexuality is a very little known identity, and a lot of people don't believe that asexuality exists. They just think it's the same as celibacy. You've heard all these aphobic or misunderstood comments before. And because of this, people can equate their experience of not being understood, of not being seen, as to that of a mythical creature, such as a dragon. Dragons in particular were probably chosen because they are one of the most well-known, popular mythical creatures. Honestly, my favourite mythical creature at the moment is the Pard, but that's just because it's called the Pard, and it's just the Pard. Moving on, the third aspec symbol on the list, which was mentioned in many different forms, was the various pride flags of the aspec community. This should be an obvious one. Within the LGBT+ community, we often use pride flags and the colours of the specific pride flags to show that we are of a given identity, to show pride for that identity, to show allyship of that identity. Because there are so many orientations underneath the ace umbrella, as it were, there are plenty of different flags to choose from. The ones that I saw mentioned specifically were the asexual flag, the one you've probably seen the most, the arrow flag with the green and grey stripes, the demisexual flag, which is in similar colours to the asexual flag but with the triangle on it. These are all popping up here, I hope, if my editing's up to snuff. And the arrow ace flag, which is one that you may not see very often, because it's not used as often as the aromantic flag for aspec people. but some people prefer to use it, and it is a different colour scheme as well. Going down the list, we then have garlic bread. Now, you may have noticed that no one has mentioned cake yet. They have not mentioned cake, yet they have mentioned garlic bread. As the ambassador of Ace Cakes, that's the title that I just made up this moment. I have no authority here. I am insulted that garlic bread has surpassed cake as a symbol of the Ace community. That being said, garlic bread is delicious, and I wholeheartedly support its use as an Ace Pride symbol. The reason why garlic bread and cake are used as symbols of the Ace community is simply because one would rather eat cake or rather eat garlic bread than they would have sex. It is quite common in the Ace community to list things that you would rather be doing other than sex, and garlic bread and cake are just the poster childs for that in the Ace community. Next on the list we have rings. This was mentioned a lot, specifically the Ace ring, which I have on my finger right now. The Ace ring is a black ring on the middle finger of your right hand. Those rules are a little bit flexible if you don't want the ring on that hand. Generally, a black ring will be seen as those in the community as denoting that you are aspec. There are also, if I understand correctly, there are arrow rings. I think the arrow ring may be white, but in the same position. Rounding out the symbols that had enough votes to be in their own category, we have unicorns. Now, I haven't seen unicorns quite as much as dragons, but unicorns have exactly the same reason for dragons as existing. I would say that unicorns are probably more apt a symbol than dragons, although I do prefer dragons myself. A unicorn is a very rare mythical creature, and it's something that is not seen very often, and it's usually an omen or a blessing if you do see a unicorn. I think this ties in better to the theme of people not understanding asexuality, and therefore they're like a mythical creature, than dragons do, whereas dragons in stories, in fantasy, tend to be these larger than life, in your face,
I am a dragon, I will breathe fire on you and eat all your children.
Or they just sit in a cave and on their gold. But regardless, it's very different than unicorns, which are kind of these, they stay far away from people, they're hidden out of sight. I think that works better as an analogy. Fun fact, nobles in olden times used to think that unicorns existed and had magical properties. Sailors or fishermen took advantage of this and hunted narwhals. Narwhals have very long horns which look similar to what you would think of as a unicorn horn. The nobles would then grate this horn onto their food because they believed it would have magical properties, which would make them better, make them healthier, make them more lucky. I'm not sure the exact reasoning. But the problem is that narwhal horns are poisonous, so they were grating poison onto their food, which is not ideal. Going into the other category, these three only had one vote. First, we have arrows. I realise that's confusing. I mean, arrows, like a bow and arrow, you know, like your arrows. The reason for this should be obvious given my confusion. It is a homonym with arrow, as in it's short for aromantic, and therefore arrow ace is someone who is good with arrows or bows and arrows, whereas arrow ace is someone who is aromantic asexual. The next on the list is axolotls. I've seen this symbol being used quite a bit actually, so I'm surprised it only showed up once. I think the reason axolotls were used is that they're thought to asexually reproduce. I don't believe this is true. I think they do breed funnily, but I think it's wrong. And the final thing we have that was only mentioned once, and I don't know why it was mentioned, was Paddington Bear. You know when you hear about something, and then you hear about it about 17 times in 1 week, when you've never heard about it once before. That seems to be happening with Paddington Bear at the moment. I was aware of Paddington Bear, I had seen Paddington Bear before, but suddenly he seems to be showing up everywhere and I have no idea why. I know that he's a big, like a popular character in British media, I guess, and recently he had tea with the Queen. But why Paddington Bear is an asexual icon, I do not know. I would hope most children's characters aren't having explicit sex scenes in books and media. So I don't know why Paddington Bear was singled out. Have I said Paddington Bear too many times? Probably. Anyway, if you do have any ideas of why Paddington Bear is an aspec icon or aspec symbol, then feel free to let me know because I have absolutely no clue. But with that being said, those are your favourite symbols of the aspec communities. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. I post videos every Saturday, so if you want to see more, then feel free to subscribe. That is all I had to say today. Have a wonderful day, and I shall see you next time.